This is What If Subaru Natsuki had the Omnitrix Part 2. Let's dive right into it. I last left off after Subaru would have put his life on the line to save and pretty much help Emilia, and also being saved last minute by Reinhardt as well. Now, pretty much, he wouldn't be morally wounded the same way, so Subaru would have woken up a little bit earlier and still finding himself coming across, well, Beatrice. Him finding himself in a manor or some sort of mansion, noticing some sort of weird, very unfamiliar ceiling. He wakes up seeing no one in the room with him as he walks through the corridors and the hallways of the mansion, eventually finding a petite, blonde-haired girl, or little girl as it seems to be, as she presents her name as Beatrice. And more or less, their whole conversation and their whole pretty much interaction with each other is very blank if you gotta think about it, because more or less she straight up pretty much sucks all his energy out of his body, more or less causes him immaculate pain as Brody falls down to his knees when the Lord came. I mean, bro falls down like a sack of potato, does the death drop, like literally just falls to the ground. He tries to go for the Omnitrix, but passes out after having a little bit of a conversation between Beatrice, saying that her personality and her mannerisms aren't so human. As she says, don't lower me down to your stupid human standards. As we get switched to, well, later in the day, as Subaru wakes up and talks to himself, going about, well, I feel like waking up this early, I feel so proud considering I'm such a night owl. But this would be my, second, third time waking up? Maybe I should just stay in a little longer. As he does get interrupted by two, well, multicolored women, Rim and Rom. Rim is a blue-haired girl, and Rom is a red-haired girl, having a little bit more of a colder, meaner type of brass personality, and Rim being more of the sweet, kind-hearted one from first glance. They start to talk, and they more or less tease in the same way like in canon if you've seen the anime, and more or less, and I like teasing, like they literally have the most blankest, like they're, well, first time meeting them guys, if you've seen that in the anime, like they are very basic. Oh, they feel very like AI generated when you first meet them. Their conversations, them talking in unison and finishing each other's sentences, it's very weird, but more or less, Subaru kind of warms up to it in later episodes. Now we see that Subaru does get interrupted between the conversation between the girls, as he does kind of pretty much tease him a little bit, making weird hand gestures, but being stopped by Emilia. As Emilia interrupts, saying that you're finally awake. They go on in the courtyard after talking for a little bit and getting some quiet time between each other. He does get dressed up into his jumpsuit and does some radio calisthenics, and he would actually, ask Emilia to join him. They do radio calisthenics together, and they start to jump around, twist, bend, and all sorts of other things. Them yelling victory at the end, Puck joining in as well. Puck is going on about how he almost lost you, and that it was a very, kind of a dicey situation with that whole Elsa girl. But I am thankful to you, Subaru, for helping her out and saving her when you could, and also using that weird thing on your wrist. Subaru would have chuckled saying, yeah, as she would have been saying, oh, that's what I wanted to ask you out here when I dragged you out here. What is that? As Subaru would have realized that she didn't tell her what this was in original continuity, considering that the first time they ever met was his third go. So, Subaru goes on to say that it's an ancient artifact, kind of a family heirloom, and he more or less has access to transform into anything he imagines with the watch. It's kind of sporadic at times because he gives him the wrong transformation if he isn't focused enough, as he just throws that out there because, for a plot point, he can straight up lie about the Omnitrix as much as he wants because it's out of Puck's, power. He can't see or really hear any real truth or lie about the Omnitrix, considering that it's an otherworldly item that the goddess gave Subaru to give him a handicap in this new world, in this continuity, or in this timeline. So, more or less, Subaru can lie as much as he wants about the Omnitrix, and no one can tell that he is lying. Even someone like starring green-haired girl in the later seasons. Besides all that, we know that Subaru does tell her a little bit and kind of summarizes the abilities in the Omnitrix the best way he can. As what would happen is they get interrupted by Rim and Rom, being told to meet up with the Lord of the Castle and for, well, breakfast. They get ready, and Subaru is pretty much walks into a dining room and sees the group. He sees Beatrice as Beatrice off rip. Changes her personality completely like a dot on a dime when she sees Puck, like just like that, and literally starts to cuddle and literally spoon feed this guy breakfast. So more or less, he obviously knows that yeah, Beatrice is a softie for Puck. Now they go on their normal conversations, him eventually finding himself next to a clown. Him going on about how you guys really hire a clown to entertain you every day before dinner, or I guess breakfast. Wow. I don't understand any of you snobby rich people. As he passed him out on his back, but Emilia tries to butt in saying, that's actually as she gets stopped by Roswell, as he says, no. I'll be ahead of, introductions. He chuckles, saying that he's the lord of the castle. Subaru's face goes completely pale, saying, I'm sorry. As he said, no, we know you're new to our ways, as Emilia told me that you were new. As it would have been stated that Jesus, I'm still fresh from my hero what is, goddamn. Subaru would have told him, or told Emilia, about how he was new to the capital and yada 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 and blah 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 blah. So more or less, he would have been able to get a little bit of that conversation he originally had with her his first go, and kind of reenact some of that with her in the courtyard, and just to get a good set on everything that's going on. Now, what happened? Same conversations would have played out the same. It would have talked about the whole capital and about what was going on in the world at the time. About how Emilia was a runner-up for the next candidacy of the 47th or 42nd ruler of Lagunica, more or less being a future royal if she did win. So, more or less, Super would be shocked, saying, "Holy crap, I saved a princess?" Him going on and on, but eventually asking, "Wait, so you lost the one thing you needed to apply and be applicable for being a literal queen of a literal kingdom, a capital?" Her saying, "Well, if you put it like that, and first of all, I didn't lose it. Duh, I didn't lose it. It got stolen." Subaru saying, "Yeah, sure," as he chuckles a little bit, teasing her. Now they get stopped because, well, they do talk a little bit more, and they do kind of say it's a little bit suspicious that this guy with some untapped power, they are taking Emilia's word for it and Puck's word for it, for them not seeing, Subaru's true power in display, as Subaru basically just talks to him more and more or less is still asked to, is there anything we could do in our power to help you and guide you and pretty much, do whatever you need, like any type of favor you need, because you saved our precious Emilia. And, well, Subaru lands on the same path he did last time, to become a butler and to work at the estate as a butler alongside Emilia and Rom. So we jump right into it. Now, Subaru isn't the best butler. He doesn't know how to cook that well. His clean is okay. It's basic. He can get the job done, but he isn't anything special or out of ordinary. He doesn't have worker hands, and more or less, he's not the best cleaner or cleaner up or cooker. So yeah, Subaru isn't the best, but we do see that Subaru eventually does get his uniform, being at first put off because the two girls would have said that his clothing, and none of the clothing they had, none of the butler fits they did have, didn't fit him. He had too much of a more skinnier, more defined feature body. He didn't have the more muscular definitions that they're mainly used to with their butlers. So pretty much they were being kind of discouraged, but more or less saying that he might grow into it. Them saying no, they don't want him to look like a baggy bum when people come over. So yeah, when they house guests. So well, Subaru does get his clothes eventually suited up and pretty much addressed to his positions and his requirements, as Rim does measure him same in continuity. Him being kind of flustered, but just letting it happen, as he would just close his eyes. Now they would get their measurements, and later that day, the day would have gone exactly the same. We would see that Subaru would have gone to town with Rim and would have started to just talk to the, well, townspeople as he goes to the town and talks to them, pretty much chatters with them, and his personality is kind of well put together. He is more or less coming and being, well, accepted into the town as the kids kind of love him and, let him play around as they do find a stray dog. And Subaru tries to pet him, but him biting him and Subaru just saying, ow, little bastard, as the kids would have chuckled as Subaru would have just walked off, telling the kids to be safe and pretty much walking away. Now, Subaru being pretty good with the kids and also the townsfolk seeing him as a kind of an okay person, as we would see eventually Subaru would have found his way back to the, well, estate with Rim, picking up some stuff with Rim. Now, Rim and Subaru still do talk, as Subaru does talk about, demonic inspiration, and kind of their relationship between each other does kind of grow as Subaru gets a little bit through to her, just a tad bit, trying to, pretty much comfort to her personality and trying to spit some game legitimately because he would be a lot more confident in his abilities and himself, considering that he literally has one of the most powerful objects in fiction on his wrist right now. So Subaru eventually finds himself going to sleep that night after having a, well, very emotional conversation with Emilia, as he asks Emilia to go on a date with him, as he does have the courage to ask her straight directly that he wants to spend some time with her in the town. She does go on about how I don't think that would be a good idea, considering that the townsfolk might see me differently than how they see Rim. As he would have said that's nonsense and that it doesn't matter if they look at us differently. I just want to spend time with you, Emilia. As they talk, and Amelia's kind of flustered, not flustered, but more or less kind of flattered, as they do agree on going on a date tomorrow into the town. So Subaru's excited and pumped, as well he goes and gets ready to go to sleep that night. As Subaru would have woken up, as he would have restarted. We were looking around and saying that Subaru Noski is destined for greatness today, but him getting interrupted when he sees two of the girls saying, our guest seems to be confused, as Subaru's confused on why they are even in his room, but looking around, noticing that his markings on his hands from earlier today's work aren't there. His room is untouched, and it seems like he's been here for the first time again. He started over. He returned by death. As Subaru is shocked and kind of horrified on how he died. He wasn't attacked, he wasn't stabbed, nothing of the sort. He was just confused. With that being said, Subaru would have restarted. Now, sorry, my audio is a little different. My mic died halfway through, and I gotta get this video done, so sorry, guys. But let's just continue. And Subaru is confused, but tries to put his head in the right space. This is his third time now, and he needs to figure out what happened or what went wrong. Now, in this continuity, Subaru still does choose to be a, well, butler and tries to make the same steps he made last time. Subaru goes on to do his little thing. He talks to the same, people, meets Roswell yet again, and pretty much the day goes exactly the same. The only different hitch or change is Subaru does change a little bit of what he said about Emilia about the Omnitrix, as each time he starts over, he kind of says less and less about the Omnitrix, trying to keep it more of a secret, and trying to figure out how he can explain it in a way that doesn't make him sound like, he's crazy, considering that he got gifted a crazy watch from his world, as he doesn't know if he can even tell anybody that he's reincarnated and all this other stuff, or he's summoned to this world. But with that being said, Subaru does notice something out of the glint of his eyes. Something weird. Rim has been pretty chill so far his last few go-abouts, but somehow Rim seems to have kind of an undertone, I guess you could say, disattachment from Subaru. Subaru being confused, but just noticing it now that she's had this look in her eyes for so long towards Subaru that he didn't even notice it. But him throwing it out of his mind as just thinking it was his own, thinking, and him just being over, paranoid because he literally died. He literally died and he restarted. So Subaru makes the same steps he did in the original, and later that night, Subaru walks out of his room, being sick, and trying to figure out what's going on with him, what's wrong. He starts to walk down, kind of tripping over himself in the hallway as he hears chains rattling. He jumps out of the way narrowly by the luck of his hair as he sees the chain hit the ground as some sort of bald whip. As he looks back, as he sees the masked or black figure assailant, as it seems to be a shorter looking person, maybe even a petite little man. As he gets up, trying to figure out who this person is, but it's too dark for him to see anything. He goes to the Omnitrix, transforming into, well, Ditto. He transforms into Ditto and looks at himself, looks at his hands, and, well, recognizes, oh snap, I might got a good one for this. So, well, seeing this, he is super, well, impressed, because now he can, try to fight back. He still can't see anything because it's incredibly dark, as he duplicates himself about 5 to 6 times, trying to overwhelm this assailant. The assailant starts to kick back, the Ditto duplicates, and starts to kick them away and away. Subaru starts to feel the pain of these other Dittos, but just tries to push through the pain, jumping towards this masked person, or this silhouette, because he still can't see anything, but he gets kicked back midway into 2 different Ditto clones. He looks back and looks at another Ditto getting grabbed by this person and tries to see what the other Ditto's seeing, but they are the same people, but he can't really, he's not linked to the Dittos like that. He looks closely, trying to figure out what the Ditto's seeing, as the Ditto yells out, saying or trying to say some sort of remnant of a name, but getting his neck snapped and Subaru restarting. Now, for a quick explanation, if you know, Ditto is more or less kind of flawed in the way that he feels the pain of all of his clones, and pretty much his clones are him. They're just pretty much splits of his self, and more or less aren't weaker versions of the original. They are the exact same person, or I guess you could say being. So they feel the pain of each Ditto, and if one Ditto dies, I would say probably all of them die, or the original Ditto loses some power. So I'm going to say if one Ditto dies, they all die, because it seems to be that way, considering that one Ditto get captured, and all the other Dittos literally started to pull together and get thrown into the same body because one of the Dittos was about to, turn back or time out. So, yeah. So, well, Subaru wakes up, restarting with Return by Death. Him being pissed off, yelling in his sleep, looking over, seeing Rim and Rom terrified at his screaming. Subaru calms down and tells him, I'm very sorry, I had a nightmare, as Ram says that you better get that checked out, and pretty much Emilia jumps into the room saying, are you okay, Subaru? Are you alright? Him saying, yeah, I'm alright, I just had a bad dream. As him still not knowing who that person was, but him being determined to figure out how he could save the manor, and how he could change anything, because he assumes after he dies, this person, this assailant, comes after everyone else in the castle. He picks a different route this time, choosing to be a guest in the manor. He looks over the manor after telling his goodbyes to everyone else like Roswell, Puck, Emilia, and Rom and Rim, and goes to separate ways, telling them to have a good life, and saying he might visit later in life. He goes away, but he actually circles back, hiking and pretty much keeping his, his distance from afar on a nearby mountaintop, having a clear look at the castle, trying to figure out, who's going to sneak up or who's going to get into the castle after night, considering that he thinks maybe something's going on. Now, doing that second time ago when he's, a guest, he does actually ask, he does ask Beatrice about, curses and how someone could die through magic. It could be something like his body getting sucked of all his mana, or some sort of curse being placed upon him. He doesn't ask her to, check him or anything for curses just yet, but pretty much he does go on his separate ways, and pretty much, goes to the mountain cloud, or the mountainside, like I said earlier. I get comfortable, I had to change my position in my seat. But yeah, so doing that, we would see that, Subaru would have looked over the mountain cliffs, just chilling there, and just watching over. Looking at the Omnitrix and dialing through his transformations, trying to figure out how he could do this a good way. He thinks to himself, maybe he can just go Ghost Freak and just chill around the estate. But thinking to himself that he couldn't keep his transformation longer than 10-something minutes, so he couldn't really just stake out for 10 minutes straight, as someone would probably find him even if he went Ghost Freak form. Now, we see some footsteps come out as Subaru looks behind him, seeing a chain coming towards him. He dodges in a few seconds. He realizes it's the same chain he saw that last night he died, or the other night he died. He dodges and weaves out of the way as fast as he could as he looks up and sees the assailant come out of the shadows, him telling them to come out and show themselves as he's shocked and petrified of what he sees. He sees Rim. He looks at Rim, telling her, "What? I thought we were friends. How could you do this? Is that really you?" As her saying, "You smell like the witch. You're no friend of mine. You're part of the witch cultist, aren't you?" As he starts to get accused of a bunch of stuff he doesn't even know about, as Subaru's confused and asking her, "What are you talking about? I'm not a witch. What are you, what?" As he gets stopped being thrown again by the chain. Him dodging the chain, but the chain slightly glazing him on the arm as he goes for the Omnitrix, but Rim going for another swing, knowing the tales Emilia told out the Omnitrix about how it gave him great power, and that if he pressed the button, it would turn him into something cool. So Emilia, telling this, Rim would use it to her advantage, trying to get to, well, Subaru before he can transform. Subaru starts to dodge and weave more and more, faster and faster, trying to get the Omnitrix before Rim can get a solid blow on him. Now, he does get hit one good time against the chest, but getting sent back flying, nothing getting, crashed in or pretty much caved in, as, Subaru gets pinned up against a boulder. Rim goes on about how you smell like the witch, and how you must be with the cultists, and I don't want to hear your lies, as she's pissed off right now. Somehow, she just is disgusted by the sight of Subaru. She goes for a final swing as Subaru goes for the Omnitrix, picking any transformation, anything that could save him in the situation, as he transforms into fire. He fights back, shooting a huge gust of fire towards Rim as Rim jumps back out of the way. Subaru looking at himself and his hand saying, "Yes! A good one. I loved this guy growing up." As he shoots another fireball again and again and again towards Rim. Rim starts to dodge and weave out of the way, saying, "What are you talking about?" As she throws another hook or another swing with her chain towards, Subaru. Subaru dodges and grabs the chain, chucking her and trying to yank her towards him as he goes for a quick jab or punch as Rim dodges and tries to cut him up and stab him, rip him apart. But after her doing all that moves, she would have looked at him, seeing that he just started to regenerate and heal his body, him chuckling, saying that, "I don't want to hurt you, and that we were friends. I'm not a part of the witch cultist." As Rim looks closer and seeing that his scent isn't different. It's different somehow. He isn't clinched or quenched with the scent of the witch. It's not as potent as he would have, but it's more like a mixture of the ocean and all the good smells of the ocean, not the fishy smell, but all the good smells of the ocean, and like a beach with the stench of the witch mixed within it. And that's Aqua, getting her little voodoo spells all over Izuku. But she would have said enough is enough, going berserk and trying to finish the job. Now they go back and forth as eventually their fighting styles and Subaru's superior healing power is overpowering Rim. Rim is jumping back again and again as the fight is pretty lackluster and kind of evenly matched. Rim loses it and tries to go full on as her horn starts to get shown. Subaru looks up as he doesn't know the horn yet, he just sees a glaze of light. As he looks at the Omnitrix, hearing those crappy and he times out a split second right before he takes a blow from Rim, causing him to restart. Subaru waking up and being pissed off even more, but more terrified and kind of angry towards Rim. He looks at Rim as he sees her kind of giving that blank smile towards him, as he now knows everything she did, all the smiling, all the conversations he had with her, it would all be fake. She doesn't like him. She just giving a front. And at the end of the day, at the end of the 4 days, she's going to just kill him just like the last 2 times. And maybe the first time too. He probably was just asleep, and he probably just got bashed in his head when he was asleep. So Subaru, more or less, is just pissed off. He tries to figure out what to do and how could he change the events of all this. How could he persuade her that he's not part of the witch cultist group? He goes back to Beatrice, asking her about what's going on and about what's the haps. He does get told by Beatrice that he does smell like a witch, but Beatrice thinking he already knew that. Him saying, no, I didn't, but her asking him, so why are you asking now? Subaru is kind of just confused, saying that he can't really tell her too much because, well, he tried telling Emilia earlier on and he couldn't do it. A strange black presence stopped him, like his heart was being pulled, squished. He couldn't say anything. He was paralyzed. He was petrified. Him trying to figure out how he could change this. Rem is trying to kill him and thinks he's a part of some sort of witch cultist group. And he does kind of ask about the witch cultists to, pretty much Beatrice. He asks about them and tries to get some information around them. Beatrice says that she can't help him that way and that he should just focus on what he's trying to do. And saying that, well, you came here asking about the witch cultist group and about the scent of the witch. And I'm trying to figure out, what are you trying to accomplish, I suppose. As, well, Super just says, I don't know, as he bolts out of, Beatrice's library and walks away. Subaru spots Rim in the hallway as he just scoffs, walking away from her being confused, but also kind of, suspicious towards him, even more so than now. Subaru is walking through the castle and tries to figure out what to do differently. What can he do? What can he change? Maybe he should do the same thing he did originally. Maybe he should become a butler and try to make Rim like him more. Maybe persuade her that he's not a part of the witch cultist group and persuade her that he's a good person. But somehow, since Super didn't really have the exact same situation he did in original, he didn't have or do the exact same thing, like go to the town and other things such as that, he would have found himself actually surviving through the night. As Subaru didn't die, him being kind of happy at first, but hearing the noise and commotion and how quiet the castle was, he waltzed into Rim's room, seeing Rim dead. Rim dies as we get a flashback beforehand because Beatrice was asked and kind of, asked for a favor that Subaru wanted her to keep him safe the fourth night. Here, for some reason, he felt like he was unsafe. That's what he told Beatrice, at least. Beatrice did stop Rom because Rom would have lashed off or lashed out at, Subaru. Subaru did ask Beatrice for her help, considering that he did have a time limit, and her being kind of a sidekick towards him on top of his Omnitrix would have helped greatly with what he could do, and also would have helped very much on, how he could, pretty much survive this fight if he did fight Rom, considering that he thought Rom was around the same strength as Rim was able to keep up with him, and the only way she won was because, Subaru timed out. Now, we see that they do find themselves back at the cliff, or at a cliff top, as the chase did happen and did pursue. She looks at, Subaru and tries to press him about what the hell happened. Subaru looks around, trying to figure out what he could do. What different choices can he make? He's at a loss here. Either he jumps off the cliff, restarting and trying to save the people he loves and trying to make the right outcome happen, or does he take the bullet? Does he go the path of wrath and fight back? Win, maybe even kill Rom. But what would that bring? Rim would still be dead. Rom would be dead. Everything, Roswell would lose pretty much everything. And Subaru becomes something he would hate, he would despise, he would become a monster. He would think to himself, what decision should he make? And this would be the plot point, the biggest decision so far in the story. What path would Subaru take? What decision would he make? As Subaru chalks it up, saying that he needs to make the right decision. He needs to choose vigilance. He needs to choose he needs to choose compassion. As he runs off the cliff, telling that he needs to do what he needs to do. He needs to make things right. As he jumps off the cliff saying that I'll save you, all of you. As he falls down to the cliffside. As I'm leaving it up here, guys. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.